Hello, everyone. My name is Lisel Osuna. I'm an early instructional coach at Lancaster Elementary in El Paso, Texas. And I decided to work with Miss Pineda, who's a fifth grade teacher, brand new teacher, joining our school this year. She joined us late in the year. She barely joined us in January, so she inherited a fifth grade class, and she's actually working with all four sections of fifth grade. She is in charge of teaching the kids all the revising and editing skills and supporting with social studies and the writing component of the curriculum. She, as I mentioned, sees all four sections, which is around 86 students that we have in fifth grade. And I decided to work with her again because she's a new teacher. She did not know anything about blended learning or personalized learning. And our campus is actually a blended learning campus, one of 11 that we have in our district. And of course, when she joined, she was a little bit nervous. And during the interview, she expressed that even though she was a little bit nervous, she was very interested in learning. And since then, I've been holding meetings with her. She has a very positive attitude. She's a risk taker. So I have enjoyed working with Miss Pineda a lot. She's a fast learner. And during our first official coaching cycle meeting, what we decided to do is to focus on letting Ms. Pineda know where the class stands, where each of the sections stand as far as mastery of the revising and editing standards. Since she was new, she didn't know the students, so I wanted to show her the data, show her where the kids were at, and we discussed several important things that she needed to know, especially because we are now going into STAR review. And she had a lot of questions about how to handle um, the differentiated groups and all of that. So, let me show you a little bit of some of the things that we talked about. Of course, we took each of the following steps slowly. I'm going to show you everything all at once here, but I just want to let you know that we met several times, and each time we met, I introduced a new component of this first cycle to her so that I wouldn't overwhelm her, because that's the last thing that I wanted to do. So we went slow, but let me show you everything we did together. So the first thing we did is that I showed her the summarized data from Aware. Aware is the data management system that we have at our district, which is Isleta Independent School District. And I was able to pull the information and compile all the information from all the tests that the kids have taken. As you can see, we have checkpoint one, checkpoint two, three, and then our interim one, which the kids took in the fall semester, and our most recent interim two, which they took now in February. So the first thing that I wanted to show Ms. Pineda was the summarized data for the whole fifth grade group. And as you can see here, the numbers are low in many of these standards. The teacher who was teaching these students unfortunately was not able to work with them a lot, since she went through several health issues herself. And as you can see, the kids suffered as far as the mastery of these concepts. So the first thing that I showed Miss Pineda were all the essays, all the revising and editing essays that the kids have been assessed on. And I explained the difference between the readiness and the supporting standards. So on here, we color coded them: green for readiness, yellow for supporting. And then she was able to see all the averages, where had each of these essays been tested, which checkpoints or interims. And then on the last column, she got the average, the summarized data for all of the assessments. So we were able to color code us again. If one of the standards scored below 60, we color coded it red. If the SC, the average was in the 60s, we color coded it orange. If it was in the 70s, yellow. If it was in the 80s, green. And as you can see, unfortunately, there's a lot of red and orange on our averages. So, of course, I mean, she realized soon that we had a challenge ahead, but I assured her that I was going to work with her, I was going to support her, and I was going to help her with small group interventions as well, just to make sure that she felt supported and confident about the challenge that we had to face ahead. The second thing that we did is that I showed her the teacher learning report from Lead Forward. And here I showed her all of the standards that were eligible to be assessed. I transferred the summarized data and plugged it in here in the first column for her to see. She was able to see that many of the SCs that are eligible to be assessed have been assessed, and we do have data for those. But some of them, for example, these that say NT, those have not been tested at all during this school year. So, one of the things that we talked about is that we needed to design some pre assessments, something short and quick, to get data for these SCs where we were lacking the average, the summarized data. So thankfully, we have a few resources that we talked about and we were able to assess the kids with. One of them is Step Up to the Teaks. And then again, since we have the access to Aware, we can also pull question items from there and design our own pre assessment. So that's what we decided to do. The next thing was to talk about the fact that we were not going to be able to reteach everything. It was impossible, especially getting so close to STAR. We couldn't reteach everything, so we had to prioritize. So I taught Miss Pineda in a different session um, about the frequency distribution charts, again from Lead Forward, and I showed her how this chart shows the number of times each of the SCs have been assessed. She noticed right away that some of these SCs have not been assessed. They were not assessed last year. And because the writing component is so fairly new, so very new to fifth and to third, we were lacking that historical data to make a conclusion about which SCs were highly tested. But the one thing that she did notice is that all of the readiness standards had been assessed. So we talked about how our plan was going to include focusing on those readiness standards, which are in green, and those were the ones that we were going to work on. Those were the SCs that we were going to do interventions on and pull um, small groups, I apologize, to deliver those interventions. Now, the last part was to talk about who were the students who needed these interventions. And again, right here you're gonna see many students, and that is just because, like I mentioned in the past, Ms. Pineda is working with all four sections in fifth grade. So this list contains all of those students. Of course, this is just a snapshot, so I did not include everybody, but um, you can see how the data is shown here for each of the students in our campus because it is a blended learning campus. The data is displayed many times. People who come to visit us, they question us about, displaying the names of the students and their averages, but the culture in our campus is so open and positive about this that we have never had any issues with any of the students or parents showing the data on our data walls. And that is the reason why I show it here. Mm, this list, of course, shows the names of the students and then it shows who needs to review which concepts. So again, we decided to focus on the readiness standards, and you can see them here. These are the ones that are in green, and I decided to go ahead and circle the ones that were showing low as far as the summarized average. Um, and this was basically cycle one. The next phase was going to, um, we were going to work on designing those interventions and those lessons that she needed to deliver, but that is going to be included in cycle two. So cycle one was more focused on teaching Miss Pineda about the data, about how do we go about selecting the SCs that we want to target through interventions, which SCs are priority, and how do we use Aware to pull all this data reports, and how do we use it to group our kids. And she was able to learn. She's a very fast learner, very enthusiastic, very a great risk taker, and she was able to learn how to use all these reports and pull them for herself from Aware. So I'm very proud of her. Cycle two will show what we did next.